So I've been chewing for the last week or so on this point of a God or a view of the universe, or whatever you'd want to describe my spirituality. Certainly not a church or something like that. So anyway, my experience versus what I've been taught, and then further maybe what I'm finding other people are teaching. And so here's some actual points that I've been struggling with, and maybe some conclusions I've come to that might be helpful. Anyway, there's a woman, Vesula is her last name, and she's writing a book, True Life in God, and she's doing an automatic writing. So she basically goes into sort of relaxed trance-like state, and the information starts coming out, and she's just writing, even in different penmanship than her own. So that kind of stuff is not really new, and I appreciate that it's a little cleaner channel than me just sitting here and thinking, I've thought about God a whole bunch, and here's how I tell you he is, and here's what kind of relationship he wants to have with you, and all that type of stuff. I mean, I would just be making stuff up, and it would be very leaning towards my personal view as opposed to a divinely inspired one. So automatic writing seems a little bit better. But I was introduced to this Vesula's True Life in God, which is a Catholic church somewhat condoned. I mean, there's thousands of people who go to all her talks, and she's been published a whole bunch of books, and I hear that maybe she's about to be sort of accepted by the church. I think they would accept it but be cautious type of thing, but of course they're going to say that. Anyway, but they don't seem to have any issue with it. And from what I've read about it and heard from people, it's really dark. And it's like, second coming kind of stuff, and how Jesus is so disappointed in us, and how we're going to suffer. And I think one of her books is Heaven Exists, but so does hell, And this whole, expectations not being met by Jesus, God, Mary, whatever angles they want to look at. Anyway, so my struggle is that's not what I resonate with. I'm not familiar with it, but I do feel like there's an important concept. Well, let me go back into my contradicting two versions of this automatic writing, and then I'll get into my conclusions about it and where I'm trying to move forward and put this chapter out of my head. All right, so she's writing this very dark version of God and Jesus and retribution and lack of, worship of Jesus and all types of things like that, and the turning towards evil and the reckoning of the souls in hell and all this kind of crazy, scary stuff. So on contrast, years ago, but I had to look this book up again, and I'm like, Conversations with God is written by Neale Donald Walsch, and that's automatic writing also. But it is in such contrast to this woman's, and really a good bit in contrast even what the Catholic Church says. But I think the Catholic Church has to live with a little bit of fear to kind of keep enrollment. And you need the sacraments, you need us, you need to be coming to the church and worshiping us, and hey, enrollment's down, so I think a message about Jesus being really disappointed in us right now and coming back to straighten us out and bring back the true church and all this type of stuff. I don't see where they're going to try to kill that message. And so the other thing is, like, where's that message come from? Well, if that's the way I view God, then when I reach my higher self, because I don't believe that Jesus has decided I'm going to sit down with this woman, every few days and have a conversation, and I'm going to hold her hand and write this stuff out. I don't buy that. There could be like Christ conscious people talk about. There's a lot of Christ energy around the universe, so I don't know how it plays out, but I can tell you one thing for sure, neither does anybody else. So you can't tell me that he's sitting down with her. So we'll leave that point out. But either way, Neale Donald Walsch has the same thing happening. And his version is so positive and so much I guess I would look at it this way. It's like his description of a relationship between God or spirit or whatever, the universe, and me as an individual is much more like a loving parent to a 3-year-old child. And I have a 3-year-old granddaughter now. Of course, I've had 4 3-year-old children, but I just can really not picture at all what kind of reprimand or punishment I'd want to instill on my 3-year-old. I just like, you just don't get it yet. You will get it. Now, as she gets older, she'll understand more and more. When am I going to draw the line and say, well, your time's up to have understood this lesson, to be more giving and loving? Or your time's up for realizing that church was important and you needed to show up, and you didn't show up, and your time's up. I'm not letting you learn anymore. Not to mention the fact that she may be the most loving child out on the playground, but didn't decide to go to church, or didn't decide to receive the sacraments, or wasn't introduced to them, whatever. But nobody's accounting for the love between people and how much your decision making and life choices are based on love. We do a whole lot of harrowing to people who have made choices to say, I'm going to be really diligent about being productive and making a lot of money, and I'm going to be really successful in my business, and I'm going to really influence a lot of people, and I'm going to really be famous. Those people are like worshipped. But who's giving any kudos at all to somebody who's just loving? And the other thing is, you could throw in the most pious. I'm the busiest person at church. I do the most at church. I'm the most involved at church. I'm the most, outwardly seen as loving to Jesus. However you could do that outwardly, I have no idea, but that seems to be very important to people. And I'm not saying that any of those things are inherently evil, of course. I'm just saying what type of relationship you choose to have with God depends on your relationship you choose to have with yourself, or what you have decided that the way the universe works. The way the universe works is love is conditional, and you got to do these certain things. Or that it's not, what you do in a loving, choices you make on a day-to-day basis that are based off of love aren't as important as, following the rules and learning, cognitively how God works and how the church works and how rituals work and all that type of stuff. Anyway, so I just would encourage everyone that I come across to be a little bit more forgiving of themselves, a little bit more accepting, a little bit more loving, and take some time and see the perfection in what you're doing. A 3-year-old does a lot of, you could say, mean things, but it's part of the learning process. It's how you realize that, taking toys from your baby sister does not feel as good as giving a toy to your baby sister. Well, that's a form of love that Jesus would like you to learn. How are you going to learn it if you don't have the opportunity? If you didn't learn it when you were 3 years old, then maybe you'll learn it when you're 30 years old. If you don't learn it when you're 30 years old, maybe you'll learn it when you're 60 years old. If you don't learn it when you're 60 years old and you die, then maybe you'll learn it next time around. Now that's getting controversial too, because people think, maybe there's not a next time around, because we don't want you to waste your opportunity and say you're going to have to learn it by 30 or you're never getting another chance. Well, whether you get another chance or not, I can't imagine a God who would find fault in people because they didn't learn the beauty of giving and loving, as opposed to the fear-based hate, anger, and wanting things and pulling things to yourself and not sharing and all that type of stuff. Those are two distinct feelings that you're already in hell if you don't have a positive, loving feeling towards people and yourself, especially to yourself. If you don't have that, you're in hell. No God needs to send you there. Why wouldn't he just come here and eliminate you if he wanted to eliminate somebody who was doing something wrong? So I think we're just here for an experience. Rediscover the perfection in who we are. And if you're going to do that, then go for it. And push out there and be as loving in all your decisions as you can be. And don't worry about some God who's going to be judging every mistake you ever made. Or anyone else's mistake, for that matter, may be equally important. Leave people alone. They've got their own version of their relationship to God, unless you're going to give them a little hug and say, you know what, it's okay. I think you'll be fine. And everyone else around you will be fine. That's worth saying. But to say, you need to do this or need to do that, I don't see the point. So, anyway, hopefully this was helpful. If not, just listen to it myself again and it'll remind me of the things that, I don't know. I own most of the stuff I'm sharing with you, but it slips away. And that sense of there's not enough of something out in the world makes me like hold things a little too tight and not enjoy that feeling of sharing as much as I could. But anyway, you work on it, I'll work on it. See ya. Love ya. Out.